Hello everyone and welcome to another Stargate lore video. Today we're going to be talking about the Reetou.
How'd you know that?
My mother told me.
History. We don't really know much about the Reetou's history, as the earliest event we know about them is when they first came into contact with the Goa'uld. And if you've been listening to a number of my videos, or you're just a general Stargate fan, you probably know how that went. If in case you don't, basically what happened was the Goa'uld feared the potential of the Reetou because of their unique genetic quirk, which we'll get to, and tried to wipe them all out by devastating their homeworld of Reetou. However, the Goa'uld just missed a few. In the aftermath of this, the Reetou split into two groups over a disagreement on how to fight the Goa'uld. The Reetou Central Authority, who believed in taking a direct approach, and the Reetou Rebels, who believed in fighting the Goa'uld through attrition. And by attrition, I mean they believed in wiping out any race that could be used as a host by the Goa'uld, namely humanity. The next event we know about them happened in 1999 when the Central Authority learned that the Rebels were planning an attack against the Tau'ri. In response to this, the Central Authority took two actions. First, they sent one of their agents, named Mother, to watch the Tau'ri and get a sense of who they are before making contact. She was there for at least several weeks, and we know she was there during the events of spirits, and during those events, she determined that O'Neill could be trusted. The second was the leaders of the Central Authority had ordered the creation of a genetically altered human who could perceive the Reetou, and therefore communicate the message. This human, who was originally called Sun, later took the name Charlie. As I said, after the events of spirits, Mother determined O'Neill could be trusted and sent word for Charlie to come. She kept the gate open for him so he could come through and warn the Tau'ri. Though she did fire at a computer to prove that she was there when SG-1 and everyone else didn't believe Charlie's story. After contacting the Tok'ra to confirm the story and seeing Mother, SG-1 and the Tok'ra traveled to the planet P6J813, which was the home base for the Rebels, and found hundreds of rebels on the planet. They returned to report on what they had seen and make plans to stop further incursions and failsafes, but some Reetou followed them back, resulting in a battle against all the Reetou. In the resulting battle, all the Reetou, including Mother, were killed. Charlie was taken to become a Tok'ra as he was dying due to the effects of his genetic engineering, though we never learn if this works, with Jacob saying the Rebels will keep trying to wipe out any race that could be used as a host by the Goa'uld. And that was the last we ever heard of the Reetou.
What?
Yeah, they never come up again. The only time I can think of was like in a passing comment in Fair Game, but that may or may not have been a lie to trick Neytiri, so there you go. Biology. Biologically, the Reetou appear to be insectoid in nature, standing about 2.5 meters tall with 6 legs and 2 spiny green arms. They also have 2 large eyes on the side of their heads, which looks very crab-like to me. Oh, and they're also invisible. Yeah, so this is the chief quirk of Reetou biology. They exist 180 degrees out of normal phase with the rest of reality, which not only renders them invisible, but also immune to projectile weapons in our phase of reality. There's also something about their biology that causes pain and discomfort to any Goa'uld, Tok'ra, or Jaffa carrying a symbiote nearby. It is one of the only ways of detecting their presence. Other ways of detecting them include a transphase eradication rod, which is capable of making the Reetou visible to those in our phase of reality. However, it only works in a very narrow radius. And we know that Charlie can see the Reetou, so it is possible that through some genetic combination or just natural selection, a species can naturally see the Reetou. Factions. In place of society, since we don't really know anything about Reetou society before the Goa'uld attack other than that they were peaceful, I said let's go over the factions that make up this race, which I think is kind of a first for this channel. The first faction is the Reetou Central Authority, and this is the official government of the Reetou. It's not really known as the government that existed before the Goa'uld attack, but they're definitely the one that rule now after the attack. They believe in fighting the Goa'uld directly, although it's kind of unclear how they do this. If they have ships, or they send armies, or covert groups to assassinate high-level Goa'uld system lords, it's just not really known. Although we do know that apparently they spent a large amount of their time having to do with the other Reetou faction. Speaking of which, let's get to that faction. This other faction is simply called the Reetou Rebels, and we actually know the name of the leader of this faction. This comes from the Friends and Foes RPG book. This Reetou, named Kalikek, gives us a better understanding of how this faction operates. Basically, this faction is sort of like a terrorist organization in comparison to those here on Earth. They believe in fighting the Goa'uld directly is a bad idea, and the best way to do it is fighting them in attritional warfare. They believe the best way to do this is to wipe out any race the Goa'uld can use as a host, whether or not they're part of the Empire or not. Typically, they would do this by sending 5 members on suicide teams to a planet with cross-phasal explosives, a single one being comparable to a small nuclear bomb. Now, through the leader of this faction, we get kind of sense of what their mindset is, and that is, they don't hate humans, or specifically the leader doesn't hate humans or any other race the Goa'uld can use as hosts, but he sees them as a resource the Goa'uld can use. So it's no more amoral to destroy them than, say, destroying a factory used by your enemy. Officially, both parties are at war with the Goa'uld. However, the Central Authority does not condone the actions of the rebels and actively takes measures to stop them. Technology. Due to the Reetou's invisibility, while we don't get to see a lot of them, we do get to see a bit of their technology, to which we know of at least 2. Their cross-phasal explosives, which like I said earlier are kind of like small nuclear weapons, and the multiphasic blasters. These blasters are energy weapons made by the Reetou, and interestingly enough were not made until after the Goa'uld tried to wipe them out. It fires a large blue energy bolt that can kill a human and set them on fire if taken directly. If grazed, a person will survive, although they'll be severely injured. The weapon has 2 modes, a normal and transphasic. Normal mode allows weapons to affect normal matter, and transphasic mode for phased beings like the Reetou. The only other technology we've seen from the Reetou is their genetic engineering and cloning, as we saw with Charlie. However, Charlie suffered from a variety of health issues, mainly failing organs. And there's 2 possibilities as to why this is. One is that they made him in such a rush that they didn't have enough time to finalize the details, or B, the way they changed him so he could see the Reetou had so many adverse side effects on his DNA that resulted in his failing organs. This either shows A, they were in such a rush, B, they didn't care, or C, they're not exactly experts in this field. Relations with other races. The only race we know the Reetou had any form of relationship with was the Goa'uld, and as we saw, it was a pretty violent one. Besides that, we don't really know if either faction has contact with any other race. While the Tok'ra seemed to be aware of them, there wasn't really any indication that the Tok'ra and the Central Authority were in any form of talks with each other, and the rebels probably wouldn't want to talk to the Tok'ra or any other race that could be used as hosts. As for the Tari, obviously they have hostile relations with the rebels, but for the Central Authority, we haven't really heard from them. Outside of that one instance with Mother, there's never been any attempt by the Central Authority, as far as we know, to re-establish contact. My best guess for why the Reetou have such a little impact on what's going on in the galaxy is that due to the nature of their being invisible, most races probably don't notice that they're there. A great example is when the spirits invaded Stargate Command. From what I understand, Mother was there. She did see all this go down, but the spirits, who are a highly advanced technological race, didn't seem to notice her. So it's possible that they are around, but people just don't see them. Fun facts. For fun facts, I have 3. The first is Reetou can be spelled 2 different ways. This way and this way. However, this way is wrong and you should feel bad if you spelled it that way. The second is the Reetou may have been planned to be used in the Stargate video game, The Alliance, with this 3D model here. However, I couldn't find any information about what the Reetou would have done in the game. My best guess they would have been foot soldiers of some kind. And finally, a Reetou is present in the book Stargate Relativity. In the book, in an alternate timeline future thing, the Shin had created a virus which had spread throughout the galaxy and was threatening to wipe out all humans throughout the galaxy. A team was sent back in time to stop this from happening, and one of the members of that team was a Reetou. This Reetou was named...
Right. Well, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that.
And was a member of the Tari resistance movement against the Ashen. Apparently he was good friends with both Jack O'Neill and his daughter Jade O'Neill. Again, alternate timeline, read the book if you want more info. While by the end of the book he was killed, since the timeline was changed, it's possible that another version of him is still alive on Retelia. And that was the Reetou, and I like them when I can see them. I think they had a cool idea, but they only used it in one episode. And that's pretty much how I feel about them. It's like, there's a cool idea here, but it just wasn't used. But what do you all think? Would you have liked to see the Reetou played a bigger part in the Stargate universe? Or are you okay with them being this kind of just one-off species we saw once? Let me know in the comments and maybe leave a like and subscribe. And remember,
even though we can't see them, these Reetou can definitely see us.
Which puts us at a great strategic disadvantage. I understand why the Goa'uld would want to eliminate them.
They're Goa'uld, Teal'c. That's their job.